Okay, thanks. Appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. There's really two things generally that we're interested in. One is sort of what's happened to you in the last 5 years since the plant closing, in terms of work, in terms of family life, other experiences that you think are important. And then we would like you to look back a little bit and just think about the events surrounding the closing, the controversy within the union, and so forth, and see if 5 years distance gives you any more perspective on that.
I've thought about that. I had a brother, my older brother passed away in January. And a lot since then, I've tried to kind of reflect back and look and see, do I feel the same way today that I did when the plant closed about all the plant issues? I do. I've had time to digest it, and you accept certain things in life. Most of the time life isn't fair. You make the best of what happens and you go on. But as I look back, there's not one thing that in my mind that's changed now that I feel differently about than when the day the plant closed. I still feel strongly about the issues. I thought the union leadership made a mistake in their approach to the bargaining. I thought we could have kept the plant open a couple more years. And in my mind, a couple more years meant a lot to a lot of people. So I still feel the same. And as I've talked to people from being out a couple of years and letting them digest it, I've not had anyone tell me they still think I was wrong, in my opinion. Everyone I've bumped into, even in opposition, has said, you were right. We should have did whatever it took to keep the plant open for a couple more years. We'd have had to take concessions, but that's the way that I looked at it, like the Titanic. There was only so many lifeboats economically in this area. There was only so many jobs. We had all those people leaving. I would have much rather worked for BorgWarner for $5 less on the hour than to work over at one of those other places for $10 less on the hour.
Right.
So my feelings are the same. I've looked at it, and they're probably even stronger. It's like I said back then, all you have to do is turn the TV on and you're faced with health care dilemmas. So it's more prevalent now, I think, than it was back then. So my feelings about the plant closure, they haven't changed a bit. I'm still bitter, especially on the anniversary when I would have reached my early retirement. But it's like I had told you guys previously, what kept me from, dwelling on it and stuff is I was able to raise my kids. And they're up and grown and have their own lives and stuff. So I'm thankful for that. As I look back, the numerous family members that work there, I'm thankful for that. So I just move on. We had pension options, which I was content with on what I got from them. There could always be more. There's never enough money to go around. So reflecting on the plant, my feelings are the same and somewhat stronger in my position of how I felt towards the union. I love the union. I'll join the union tomorrow. But I just think we made some mistakes in the leadership round.
Good. I want to circle back around to some of those things as well, but let's begin by just talking about work. What have you done for work since you left?
What I've done, I took a couple years off, actually about 4 years off, and spent some time with my grandkids, and just tried to enjoy my family and played a lot of music, which is something that I do. It's what I do, is play music. So I took some time off for me to regroup and tighten up, the corners in my life. It's not that they needed tightened up, but to secure everything, make sure everything was good in my family life, which it is. Work-wise, right now, I'm I think they call it now, they're the sexton of the cemetery. The local cemetery here in town hired me as their bookkeeper. from skills that I'd learned at BorgWarner. You know, when I come out of BorgWarner, I'm going, oh my God, I got HR skills. I didn't want to work in HR, you know. But so I hired in as a bookkeeper for the local cemetery out here, and I do a little office work and field work. And I really enjoy it. It doesn't pay anything. It's just like the wage scales, just like I described earlier about.
Right.
But I enjoy it. It's rewarding. It's the kind of a job you either really like it or love it, or you hate it. And to me, I really like it. I have a lot of family out there, and you know that you're helping somebody in real dire straits, you know, when you help someone through the process out there. So that's what I've done for work. And play a little music. It's like any starving artist, you know, but I've made a little money at playing music. You know, put food on the table or gas in my truck, and I've been satisfied with that. So it's a passion of mine to play music. But that's about all I've done. You know, I took some classes that were offered to me to upgrade some of my skills in the bookkeeping area. But I did that for the sake of time. And even after I got through all that stuff, that's not what I wanted to do. You know, like I say, my skills were HR, and I couldn't put on a shirt and tie. And I just didn't want to start over, you know. I had myself in a financial situation where I could take care of myself, and I just didn't want to start over. I just made the best of what I had and went on. And I'm satisfied. If I had to do it all over again, back up 5 or 6 years, I'd do the very same thing. So where I'm at on my work life right now, I'm satisfied with. It could always be better, but I'm satisfied, and I'm not looking. Actually, this cemetery job was, as I look back, I think it was the first job I ever had. I cut grass and weeds out there as a kid.
Same cemetery?
Same cemetery, yeah. And so I'm kind of hoping maybe this will be my last job.
Bookends.
Yeah, you know, so that was kind of interesting. Worked out like that for me.
So I'm curious, what HR skills did you bring out of BorgWarner, and how did you get them?
Oh, you know, and that's one thing that I'm thankful to the company as well as the union on HR skills. I mean, I was an elected official for 22 years. I like to throw that out there, that it was an appointed job, you know, that I was elected 22 years consecutively. And just working with the contract, you know, I was a shop steward for many years and a bargaining committee, and I was on the Civil Rights Committee for 15 years for the union and 5 years for the company as a joint civil rights representative. So working all those things, you know, through the grievance procedure and arbitration and contract negotiations, it builds people skills. And that's what I like to think that I come away with the most, was people skills, working issues out, being able to see the whole picture, you know, and not have your blinders on where you only see your side. And we took many classes from the union and the company on resolving, you know, personal conflict and work conflict, and we studied the NLRB. Or, you know, those laws and the civil rights laws and workman's comp, family leave. So all the issues across through HR, I was able to handle, you know, as well during those 22 years. But, you know, working, all the things that I did for the union, I worked hand in hand with HR as well, you know. So they knew my job, I knew their job. The only part that I didn't get into was the benefits section of the management side.
Right.
You know, so yeah, I got those skills from the union and from the company. I mean, you know, to have those jobs like I had, you have to have people skills. If you don't, in my mind, you don't make it as long as I did. And I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people out there that come away with the very same thing that I did. But like I say, after I got out, you know, and analyzed what skills do I have now for this new workforce, or the new world for me, because I hired in at 21. As I looked at my skills, that was the only skills I had. I never went to any great extent to learn machinery and that kind of stuff. I put all my time in the union and learning those jobs. So that's the only skills I really had was HR kind of skills. You know?
Right.
And around here, there wasn't, many jobs that were attractive to me, and they wanted, degrees. So it's helped me at the cemetery as well. Having what I think is people skills, be able to communicate with people.
Right.
So
Yeah, I bet.
it makes a big difference, I think.
So your answers have anticipated some of the other things we want to talk about. You mentioned taking classes.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you take classes, and what?
For the company and the union,
Oh, I see. Okay.
we had several at IU, and
So these were while you were working
Uh-huh.
before, but not since.
no,
Okay. Alright.
no. I didn't take anything afterwards, other than what they offered at the unemployment office, just some basic computer skills, make sure I had my basics down, and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But other than that, no, I didn't pursue any educational things, for the most part, classwork wise, after World War.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And you talked a bit about your family. You have anything more to add about sort of the impact of the closing and that experience on yourself and on your family? Sounds like you.
Yeah, I tried to always teach my kids what the philosophy or the ideology was of the union and why they're there and what they do, and they also understand, nothing's perfect, but they understand what happened from a bird's eye view. They understand the whole story of BorgWarner and the plant closure with the union. The impact on them was they seen it the same way I did. They were thankful that old Dad was able to raise them, and they've got nice teeth. They had braces on their teeth and all that stuff. So they were very appreciative of that. And I made sure they understood, that disappointed as we might be at BorgWarner for this closure, we also had to be thankful at the very same time of all those things that worked out. So, and I also see that, like today, the reason I'm getting ready to move is the kids inherited a house. So, reflecting back now, they kind of think it's time to look out after Dad for a little while. So I'm going to take that house there, which will make it financially easier for me. But they understand the big picture. It did have an impact on them, but, at the time of the closure, they were grown. So the impact was less. I worked with guys that still had some kids at home, so I'm sure it was a greater burden on them as it was for myself. So again, when I look back, those are the things that I'm thankful for, that I got the kids up and raised. They had their own lives, and their own jobs, and are financially stable. So the impact was less.
Right.
I think most of it was just emotional for them, for me, in that respect, versus them feeling the crunch. They didn't really feel a financial crunch.
Uh-huh.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Although they stopped asking Dad for $20 every now and then, but they didn't feel a real pinch because they were grown. I was fortunate. Yeah. I've had kids early in life and got them out the door,
So one of the things you mentioned braces and all of that, and that brings up the issue of benefits. And so obviously one of the big issues in the closing was the role of benefits in your compensation and so forth. How's it worked for you, the issue of benefits, health insurance, retirement, pension, things like that since the closing?
It's not worked for me, which I don't think it's worked for the average American, anyone that doesn't have an employer-provided health insurance. I don't have health insurance where I work. That was my big issue, and I'm still an advocate of a form of national health care. It was a major contributing factor to the plant closing.
Right.
Not only, just the legacy costs from the retirees and the future retirees that's coming up. So it's an issue. I was an outspoken advocate for it then, about this form of change. Like I said, I don't have health insurance at this point from my employer. I'll just have to take the whack from whatever the guidelines were set out under the Affordable Care Act. I'm a fan of that. I don't know that it's a perfect plan. Nothing's perfect in the beginning, never will be, but I think we work to shape that. I've looked at it. I went online and ran through the application. It saved me over $200 from what I had at BorgWarner. The only insurance that I really understood was the insurance that I had at BorgWarner. So when I left BorgWarner and my Cobra ran out, my insurance premiums were $640 a month. Hell, I couldn't afford that when I was working. So under the Affordable Care Act, it saved me over $200. So it was a significant saving.
$200 a month?
Yes, I thought it was a wonderful thing, but I still couldn't afford it. So, and Indiana's now just looking at expanding their HIP program, which I just got a new application for, and I'm going to sign up for HIP. Although I'm a hardcore Democrat, I kind of feel like if Governor Pence can expand on HIP, I'm all for it. You know, I think it's a good plan from what I understand of HIP right now. And if they can expand on that, that's great. But to the point right now of the health insurance, I don't have any health insurance. I'm a staunch advocate for healthcare reform.
Right. Have you had any medical problems where the lack of insurance really exacerbated things? Or?
No, not any major problems. You know, I've been lucky. No, I've not been faced with that dilemma. Just the same as everybody else. You know, I mean, getting flu shots, miscellaneous stuff,
Right.
and antibiotics. No, I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky. But you know, my push for health care reform is runs deep for me. That's why I was so adamant about change at BorgWarner. In my mind, change was coming and it's already here. And if you're not, you know, understanding the new rules of the game, you're not going to make it. As an example, my ex-wife, she had a heart attack last year and spent 9 days in Fort Wayne Lutheran Hospital. It was $85,000 for 9 days. She didn't have any health insurance whatsoever. $85,000. To me, I mean, that's out of control. I don't know what to do, but it turns into consumer debt, and that's what makes it bad. I know people right now can't get a mortgage because they have so much medical bills. So I'm an advocate for change. It just irritates the hell out of me that, you know, that we can't come up with a better system in this country. All industrialized countries have something. You know, it may not be the best plan, but so I really praise President Obama and the change for simply making change. In my lifetime, I've heard several presidents talk about change. I've not seen any significant change, with the exception of President Obama.
Good. What about other benefits? Retirement?
The pensions, when we left the shop, we had 4 options. For a guy like me, I had 26 years. I had 4 options. I could have taken it immediately on my basic pension, what they owed me for 26 years, on an age reduction scale. You know, the younger you were, the less it was.
Mm-hmm.
So it went up to your Social Security age. You had that benefit, or you could wait till you reach your Social Security age, draw your basic pension from BorgWarner. Or you could take a 15-year payment, or you could take a lump sum buyout. After the company's pension plan reached the 80% level, which was by law, it had to be at 80% of their pension fund before they could offer any type of buyouts. For just a couple of years, their pension fund reached 100%. It was, you know, amazing that their pension fund went up so high after the plant had closed. And most people took the buyout, I think. I took the buyout. It was best for me. You know, it's not best for everybody, but I took the buyout. They were all sheltered, you know, tax sheltered. So most people don't like to talk about what they got. I can say with certainty The people that had 25 and 26 years in that were around 61, 62, they probably got $100,000 if they took a buyout, which for some people was a wonderful thing. You know, I know one guy personally that he brought his paperwork and come in here because I was the bargaining committee when we closed to say, is this right? You know, is this what I'm going to get? I think he got $106,000. That's good. The I call them actuarial factors that they use to determine, you know, these pension type buyouts and stuff had changed. I think they went up. The money was actually a little bit more than what we had calculated to the unions. Our actuaries was a little more than what we first calculated. So people, I would assume most people were satisfied if they took the buyout. You know, I mean, everyone's different in their financial situation, but I know for some people it really worked out well. For me, I was just simply content with it, you know, but it worked for me. So I'm done with BorgWarner. They don't owe me nothing. They took my name off their books. Yeah.
And do you have any of these benefits with your current job? I mean, you said you don't have health. Is there any retirement or anything else?
No. It's a little nonprofit organization, you know, that's ran by a small board of trustees. And no, you know, I've had to make sure that I've tried to get myself stable or financially stable and be careful as to what I do. Because I took that buyout and I'm done with BorgWarner, but I was able to shelter it, you know, I just rolled it into my 401k plan. And so as long as I pay attention and live carefully, or, you know, smart financially wise, but I live a simple life and my life's no different today than it was really before the plant closed. So as long as I live a simple life, I think I'll be all right, you know, to get me to up to Social Security age and take it from there. But where I work right now, there's no benefits at all.
Right. Okay. One other job question before we move on to some other things. And you've touched on this a bit already, but if you want to expand on it, you can. Just talk about how the job is different. The job you have now is different from your job at Gear. You know, either in terms of day-to-day life, in terms of the actual work you
do. The office work is a lot of the office work is the same. It's just a matter of keeping accurate records of the history of what's happened on a daily basis, which is a lot of what I've done with the union. You know, keep the documents is crucial. The work, some of it's more physical, but nothing to complain about. I just work part-time out there. One thing that's different is I'm on call, you know, 24 hours. Right. But it's not been a burden. I'm just coming in on a year as to having this particular job. It really, you know, I've not reflected back to see any significant difference. I've just looked at it as part of life. You know, I just went from this job to this job. And I don't weigh it out, other than I know what the financial differences is, you know.
Right.
It's about half. But I don't really connect the two, you know. I've kind of looked at life like that. There's little blocks of time where you're doing certain things and certain things is going on. And BorgWarner in the union was a little block of time, and now I've moved on to another block of time, you know. So I try to keep it separate and just keep moving. You know, it really irritates me to kind of reflect back too much when I've kept it kept this content attitude all this time. So I try to keep moving, because back to you know one of your first questions about do I feel the same? I still feel exactly the same, and I feel good about having that same opinion. You know, all this time later.
Why?
I feel like that I've had time to make sure I've analyzed my own opinion of what happened. And did I make all the right decisions as a bargaining committee? In my mind, I did. I simply approached the whole situation as I would have the military in a conflict. I felt like as a union rep that my job was to do the best I could for the majority. If I couldn't encompass everyone in the best plan, I thought the best thing I could do was to get the majority. In the military, if you get the majority of your platoon killed on a conscious decision, you're going to be court-martialed when you get back. That's the way I approached that. The best work that I could do as a union representative was going to benefit the majority, the overwhelming majority of people. That's the position I took. And as I look back, I think it was the right position then. I think it's the right position now.
Good. Shifting gears a little bit then, some broader questions about the community and sort of how American life has evolved. One of the ways it's evolved is in the changing and really declining place of unions in American life. And so I wonder how you view unions now, having 5 years distance from that experience.
My views of the union have never changed. In my mind, we need them. They're a wonderful thing. I said in the first time you guys interviewed me that for me, they've provided for me, for the most part, my entire life, and it is still providing. I'm still reaping benefits today. I got money in my pocket today, although it's not enough. But I got money in my pocket today because of the union. So, my thoughts on the union haven't changed. I look at it as a block of time as well. I think that the society, we're going to be absence of a great union pull for a long time, and hopefully they'll come back. I've tried to tell my kids that the social issues that you look at today, and in my mind, health insurance is a social issue. If you reflect back to when my father was proactive in the union in the 70s, the issues are the same. In the 70s, the union pushed for health care reform. It's the same damn thing they're doing today. In my mind, they've been on the right track all along. They're not perfect, as I reflect back on our union. I think our leadership made some mistakes. I still respect all those guys. I still love the union. So my position on the union hasn't changed at all. I mean, it can't, because like I say, I still got money in my pocket today. Because of the union. I haven't had a union job in 6 years.
So have you ever, in terms of unions and your union membership or past union membership, have you ever run into any kind of discrimination or other hostility to you based on your union connections?
I have not. Since the plant closure, I have not. But I've not been in that work environment for the most part either. I took those years off. I know guys that have, or at least they felt like, maybe they were discriminated against. Or one guy that comes to mind told me he was kind of hesitant about putting his union education down, on a job application. But I told him, it's all you got. If it highlights your skills, you better put it down. If they don't hire you, it's unfortunate. And you're proving it. No, you're not. You're most likely not going to be able to prove it. But it's the skills you've got, and you have to capitalize on them. You've got to stick them out there. Not all employers are bad. Not all employers are going to hold that against you. I don't think it's much different than racism. I think, there'll always be racism. There's some people that just see it that way, period. So I think the same thing with the union. I think, there's certain companies that might have an anti-union attitude, or certain people. And I think it's just part of life. I don't think it's much different than discrimination in that respect. It'll always be there, I think.
Good, thanks. What about the loss of a union voice in the community? You think Muncie or even a larger definition of community, you think there's been something lost, the absence of unions as a public presence?
Absolutely. Like I say, it goes back to what I said as far back as the union's been arguing. uh, their stance on issues were the same back then as they are right now. So, for Muncie, yeah, they've lost a big voice. There is no local 287, which was BorgWarner's, the union there. There's no local 287 advocating for change or anything else that's good for the community. Issues with tax abatements, as an example. Our donations to United Way. And as I remember, I think BorgWarner and or at least the union was a major contributor to United Way for probably as long as United Way was in town.
For a good while, 287 or 499 had somebody on the United Way board.
Right, right. So they've lost a voice all over, I think. I mean, the community has. Those people are still out there, but they don't have that platform, you know, to get the big voice out, so to speak, labor's voice. They don't have that platform anymore. So yeah, I think the community has lost in that respect. A lot of people don't see it that way, I'm sure, but I do. I think the community lost a lot, to lose that voice.
Do you see any other kinds of institutions filling that void?
I don't. I don't. The labor movement is, in my mind, they're quite different than, as an example, the NRA. They're focused in on one single issue and one single issue only. Where the union and their ideology is focused on helping those who can't help themselves. Whatever that might be, whether that be health insurance or simply finding something to eat or a job. There's always been the support that the community has had, whether it be food banks, local churches, etc. But in my mind, when the voice of labor is gone, there is no voice for labor. Period. You can speak up as an individual, but if you don't have a local union, you don't have a voice, in my opinion, on that.
Good. So how much do you stay in touch with people from the union? You said you have a few friends, I think.
Yeah, and a couple of them, I got a couple relatives, couple cousins that I stay in touch with that work there. But I got, there's 4 friends that I stay in touch with. 2 of them were bargaining committee, myself, Gary Korn, and Todd Gardner. And 2 of the other guys were Mike Hawkins and Larry McKeegan. They were union stewards. But I stay in touch with them as friends. We don't reminisce much anymore about the plant. We've moved on all with our lives, and so we still have the social connection in that respect. But there's just about 5 of them, that I kind of stay in touch with. So things will pop up now and then. Well, they might text me, like Mike Hawkins. He's working out at the what's the little facility for kids down from BorgWarner out there? The little juvenile place.
Yeah, the YOC.
Yeah, Mike works there at the YOC. Okay. And every once in a while he'll text me about some silly shit that may have happened inside, in the workplace, and kind of reflect back on the shop. But for the most part, my social involvement with people from the shop is a whole new social involvement. The shop's not an issue anymore.
Right. So, just something that strikes me listening to you. Your friends are from the bargaining committee or other union official positions. You spent a lot of time doing that. Looking back, was there a big social distinction or divide between people who are involved with the union in an official capacity and those who are just rank and file working on the shop floor? I mean,
was there what now?
A social divide. You say your friends all served in the bargaining committee with you.
No, not so much a social divide. I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
I mean, presumably all of you worked at some point on the floor, and
Right, absolutely,
so
absolutely, yeah. No social, not like you would see from the company personnel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that, which was, I thought was, that little story and an issue was in your movie. I thought was painted like that. I mean, to give that picture that, you know, sometimes these jobs will create a social difference here between the two parties of the company and the union on things that they do, places they go. But for the union, I don't think there's any social division, you know, from rank and file versus the leadership. Not at all. I still know the international rep. He lives here in town. He's a wonderful guy, Mike Ailes. We disagreed mostly on about everything. I still think Mike's a wonderful guy. He's a wonderful union guy, and whoever has him as a rep, I think they're probably satisfied with it. He's a good union.
One last thing on my list, which is we want to ask you to look back and think about how both sides handled the closing. You've already pretty much made clear what you think about how the union handled things. What about your views of the way the company handled things? You know, from looking back from a few years.
We'll take 5. Let's take 5, and then I'll address that question.
Okay.
How's that? Okay.
Yeah, it's the last question I have.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so one last question that we have would be how you thought the two sides handled the closing, and we've talked a lot about how the union handled it, but we'd be interested in hearing what you think of how the company handled it.
How they handled it, I think they did what they thought was best for BorgWarner. Obviously, I disagree of the closing, but I think they did what they thought was best. And in my decisions, when we were bargaining, I tried to understand why they were doing what they were doing, you know, and not just be pissed off, but to really understand why are they doing what they're doing. There's too much money at stake. Things had changed. BorgWarner had grown and expanded as a corporation. There were younger people on the board of directors for BorgWarner who've seen things differently, as change always provides. And they just wasn't going to let things continue the way they were in Muncie. Things were either going to change or they were going to put a stop to it. And from a business perspective, I understand it, why they did what they did. They could have afforded to stay the way things were, but they had made up their mind they wasn't going to, which was one of the problems for a lot of people in the union to understand. It wasn't about can they afford it or not. It wasn't about that. It was about they're not going to. That's what it's about. So, I understand why they did what they did. I don't like it, but I understand why they did what they did.
Do you think workers should have more of a say in these kinds of decisions, generally?
Well, you mean in the plant closure?
Yeah. Or other, you know, a larger role generally in corporate governance.
I think it brings us back to the same ideology conflict that always exists. If you look at it from the standpoint of this is a free market enterprise. I've opened up this company and goddamn it, I'm going to set the rules as long as I'm abiding by the law. I'm going to set the rules, and if I no longer want to keep that operation going, I'll shut it down. It's my business. That's one perspective to look at it. From the other perspective is, while you opened up that operation, I've, you know, bought a house, and I bought a car, I've got kids to feed and all that stuff. So, yeah, you know, I think people should have a voice, but, you know, where do you draw the line? It's the same social issue I think that's always been out there. I don't think it'll ever be resolved. I mean, people always want, and I understand, I want. But I think, it's like I said in our first interview, if you don't come together, you know, have some kind of collective agreement, whoever is the strongest side will prevail and decide the issue. But should people have a say? Absolutely. But how much say? I don't know.
Right.
Like I say, I've tried to understand BorgWarner's position, just to help keep my own sanity and my own understanding of what happened.
Right. Do you think other union folks are able to do that the way you have, is to think about the opposite position?
Me, to look at it how I look at it, me.
Yeah, you've made an effort to sort of understand the corporate point of view, the BorgWarner point of view. Do
You know, I
most-
think they have. I would hope that they, do. It's the same as any other issue. It's hard to resolve conflict if you don't understand the other side. Whether it be your marriage, I mean, if she's bitching all day and you don't understand why she's bitching, she's probably not going to stop bitching. Or at least she's not going to resolve the problem. I would hope that they do, and I would hope that those are just some basic people skills that they pick up and try to understand the other side.
Right.
If you don't, I think it's detrimental to.
Right. That's all we have in terms of questions. Is there anything else you want to talk about, or anything else you think we ought to know about?
Not in particularly, just the fact that, like I said earlier, I thought Ball State has done a wonderful job in telling this story. I'm tickled to death with it. I know my kids are happy. They have a CD or the DVD, for life's to pass on down the line. I think they did a wonderful job. Really, I feel privileged that you all come out to talk to me, and I appreciate you taking the time to do so.
Thanks. Well, we appreciate you talking to us. Anything else you think we should talk about? Okay. Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate your time,
Absolutely.
and we can finish up here.